You know the funniest thing about Europe is?
What?
It's the little differences. I mean, they got the same shit over there that they got here, but it's just there. It's a little different.
All right, hey, welcome to another edition of JTJU. Got a Little Differences episode up for you. This time taking a look at an iterative set of attacks that build up to enabling, you heard me right, a Town Hall 9, 3-starring a Town Hall 10. Granted, entry level, but both eye towers are up, man. This is real. In this case, it was Whooboy that actually pulled it off, and it ended up being a Qwalk with a bi-Loonian backside. So let's take a look at the attack and all the awesome. Okay, so here's the series of attacks that build on each other, incrementing on little differences, to get the end result, which was a Town Hall 9 3-star on a Town Hall 10, which is kind of impressive, I think. So the first attack was actually pretty basic, just a scout from a Town Hall 8, confirming what the Town Hall the CC had in it. In this case, it was some archers and a dragon, which kind of implies you've got to deal with the CC. You don't want to go in with a mass type attack without the dragon being down. So as you looked at the base and you kind of debated, the group came up with, or Ops and the group came up with, a Qwalk coupled with a Loonian type attack, and I think it was primarily because these ADs were exposed to the Qwalk for one, so that was one factor that drove pushing towards Qwalk, and then and also that you then counter that once you isolate down to 2 ADs remaining, Loonian, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing that's interesting is that because the Queen position is next to the multi, with the CC, that the attack vector clearly is something along this line because you need the Queen down. You also would like the multi down. It's the killer of Loonian attacks. It's the defender against mass type attacks. But what it's weak to is high health type attacks, which would be Golem, Queen, King pushes, supported by healers, right? So it seems to work very nicely out for something of that type. So what ends up being just drawn up for the team to kind of iterate off of is a Qwalk that goes like this, a King Golem Wizard push that comes in and augments that. They engage here under Rage and Heal. CC and Queen come out to fight, and then the end result is that first phase of the walk should clear something like this, right? And at that point you've got this nice table of the base, right, that you can shoot across with a Loonian attack into the core aspects, which is this remaining expo and the single. So you then would, maybe Loon here, 2 Loonians, and then attack 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, and then haste it up to create the drive action. So that's the plan. Now, in the case of space, we had an issue that I think a lot of us face, that you'll see here shortly. The goal, again, remember, is to get over to 830. So he starts at a certain drop point, but the Queen instead decides to go to 3. And, I think all of us struggle with that at Town Hall 9, 10, and 11. Qwalk is simple enough to imagine in your mind, but very often a slight difference in placement does not equate to the direction you wanted for the Queen, or more importantly, being able to understand 9, 10, 15 shooting positions in where she's going to be. So even though Space here, who's a Town Hall 10, is trying to recover and basically create a similar attack from the different angle, it's too much to do in that short a time, and it results in just a 1-star. But it does raise the point, as our next attempt of it comes up, which would be, I think, Steve. Yep. It does bring up a question, though, of looking at how to model your Qwalks. And I think you should be doing something like this, where you start with no dots on the board. Your first yellow dots are the Queen shooting positions, and the red dots are what she's shooting in order. And you basically, using what you know, which is Queen's shooting range is 5 tiles, and her detection range is 8. You basically iteratively go through and say, if I drop her here, what she shoot first, what does she shoot second, and every time you ask yourself, is there anything in range to shoot? If not, is there anything in range to walk to? And then you figure out where she'll walk to exactly, like within a half tile. You have to know where she's walking to, and then you iterate, right? So then you basically will model her walk. And if Space had done that, he would have seen that his walk, which is basically what you see here, her walk would have been this, right? So she shot here, we did 1, 2, then moved to the B position to get 3, then she moved to the C position to get 4, then at the D position she got 5, and then she moved on and did 6, and then 7. Not the way you wanted to go. Instead, what you want to see is what you're going to see with space, right? Or with Steve right now. So this is where Steve's going to end up starting to the queen, a little further out, right? But he can know that it's going to work because he can kind of model again. First she's going to shoot the hut, then she's going to shoot the camp, then she's going to move in and shoot the mine, and so on. Each shooting positions as she moves forward to get different ranges, and as you look at it each time iteratively and know which buildings are now gone, and then what she's looking for, how does she have to move, you can model where she is and understand what she's being shot by. You can understand how she's going to move and pull away. So I guess my point to you is try to figure out how to model like this in some way that allows you to do it pretty quickly, because you're not going to model it right? You're going to have to do iterations of full pass to probably 5, 10 times before you get to the pass like, there it is, right? So you're going to have to be able to do this like a given model, like a 10 shooting position model, maybe 4 or 5 times for an attack before you come across the one you want. And so if you can't do it like in 3 to 5 minutes, your head's going to explode. So keep that in mind. But anyway, let's take a look at Steve's attack. So Steve drops it, as I said, very nicely. We've already talked about how beautiful and you're going to now see those little, now that's a shooting position, another shooting position, another shooting position. So if your model can't predict this, shooting position, shooting position, shooting position, if you can't predict that, at least within a tile or so, you're probably not going to be able to understand, like, hey, she'll be right here, she'll be right there then, and then. But if you can, it'll really change how I think you see Qwalk attacks and be able to help you really forecast or have foresight into how it's going to work. But here comes the rest of the attack. Here comes the king that I mentioned. Now notice, let me pause this right here, because a couple of things are happening. Notice how he triggered his king Iron's Fist ability before the health was down. Let's go back a little bit and you can see it. So here comes the king, and there's the fist ability. He hadn't really been shot, right? So I don't think it really impacts the attack overall, but technique-wise, it's definitely not helping him. The other thing to notice is that he's still not dropped his poison. Now, granted, the CC's not triggered, but he knows it will be, right? He knows that when his stuff, his Golem and King, get in here, it's going to trigger. So why wouldn't you drop the poison right now? Because it doesn't just kill CC, and it also slows down the attack speed that the Queen deals out. So it helps the King take less damage. Bonus. Plus, it ramps up over time so that when the dragon gets in, he's going to take damage quicker, and those archers drop faster. Double bonus. So late on the poison. And I guess the rage as well, because the rage could have been down. So there's the poison, there's the rage, right? So a little slow on the spells, but it's going to end up okay. The Queen's going to survive long enough to take everything out. He's going to start his Loonian attack. Notice, we'll go a little further. So he's dropping 2, 2, and then I think he drops 3 on this line, right? But what really messes him up here is that this air sweeper is just shoving his guy all over the place, right? If he would have dropped a haste right here, and so kind of plan ahead and counter that haste action, at minimum, he would have had this group pushing in and through quicker to this position, right? So that's one thing to think about. Because then they wouldn't have had, then when this hound takes off streaking, again, they would have been about here by now. They would have been here. They would have been moving through. They wouldn't be trailing the hound so far as they are right now. Four loons are basically 5 things behind. But the other thing to notice is, so he finally drops that haste late. I guess he got tired of him being pushed around, right? The other thing to notice is now he drops his second phase of the loons, which is fine. And he has a dive over here. But what he doesn't do is he uses his other haste to try to help that second phase, which came in late. If he would have used the haste to kind of drive the core, what you see a lot with Town Hall 10 and 11's 3-starring, is that the haste action for Loon is used, at least in part, majority. Like if you have 5, you might use 4 to drive the initial team, the team that started here. The second phase team is kind of like a cut team. It's keeping the initial team on a certain line against the core assets. But the initial team gets most of the haste to drive that line. And the backside is used to blunt the attack, basically keep them in the middle, right, to kind of shape it. So a couple different things that I think Steve did that some didn't really kill him, like the poison and the fist and the cloak being a little early. But not having the haste for that sweeper counter and not having the haste on the line drive, I think is what killed it for sure for him. That said, let's take this was the one that the attack that actually came next. It's not going to be, I guess Whooboy saw Steve's attack and was like, dude, I ain't doing that. That didn't work, right? Maybe that was what he was thinking, or maybe he was just like, I have hogs to burn. But either way, he's going to start with a Qwalk, and he does a couple things. Like he drops his rage because I think he's worried that his queen's not healthy enough to survive that dip. It could be valid. But it definitely changed the shape of the attack. But then notice how far he doesn't get. I mean, he did 2 golems here as well instead of 1 like Steve did. So he's really trying to protect the queen. And in the end, it doesn't matter. He ends up with a golem. So I think, he a little over conservative maybe on the different pieces of trying to protect the queen. The rage I would debate. I mean, because if you have to use that rage there, then at that point, the spells you need for the backside are gone, right? And so it's like, well, are we trying a 2-star? Maybe it is a 2-star attempt at that point, because it did succeed in that. But it's definitely, you're going to have a harder time 3-starring if you're not letting the queen really pressure her to get through like two defensive spot pressure points, like where this bend here is where he would get low. So that attack was just an example of like hog action, and really how I think you can see it didn't really work out. It didn't synergize in a couple different ways. Your Qwalk was basically clearing ADs, right? So the base is becoming weak to air. So coming back to it with ground is probably not getting value from what your Qwalk did for you. I mean, granted, she did take out the multi, so that was a win. But then the other thing it also didn't do is it doesn't take a synergy of the spells, right? So if you're using a poison to take out the CC, you got 1 spell left. There's not a lot of spells that actually help hogs that are DE spells, but there are spells that help loons, the haste spell. So really, if you're going to use poison in your attacks and you're going to have that half spell remaining, you're kind of leaning, or if you want maximum efficiency out of your spells, you're leaning to air. Anyway, so here we are now with A-Boy, who actually is the one that pulled off the hit up for 3 stars against this Town Hall 10. It's going to be the same flow that you saw with Steve, slightly different, little differences. So here we go. Same Qwalk as before, so no aha moment there. Just wandering around, going through her shooting positions, having a good time. But notice the health, and this is why I think Whooboy might have been right to be afraid. Watch her health come down. See right there? About 10%. So a 26 level queen, that might have been enough difference in health to where she might have capped out. So I think that's why I didn't press Whooboy on using the rage there. So but the point is that at that point, I think if you use that spell, the 3-star probably is not going to happen. The other thing to notice, though, okay, so now we're getting into little differences for A-Boy. Let me back it up a little bit. Is it right there? Yeah. So we're coming into the base. The king has been deployed. Notice, first of all, the poison is down early, right? So the queen's attack speed is reduced, even though the CC's just now beginning to... Dragon's not even out yet. But poison is down. Rage is going to go down here in a second. But the king and queen ability still have not been used. Watch how long A-Boy waits. Just right there. Just happened. But it got down to the health of about 30% before he fired fist. And then he still is holding queen. Right? Look at her. She's down to, what is that? I think 20% now. And now 10%. And now he fires Cloak on her. And what that does is it allows the healers, while she's under Cloak, the healers pump her back up almost to full health again. Watch. And so basically an eye tower has to deal with 2 queens. He killed it once, and now here she is again. It's fully alive again. And I don't think most eye towers on multi, especially if they're level 1, are going to survive that. Here comes the Loon attack itself. It's similar in terms of the deployment lines, right? So that doesn't look drastically different, and numbers are very similar. I think it's 6 versus 7. But the one difference is this haste, right? So he probably saw Steve's units getting shoved around, right? And so he said, well, let me drop a haste early to keep my Loons on target so that I can more quickly get done. Bang, right? Before the Loon pop or the Hound pops and everything. So notice how all of his Hounds are in position before that one's taken off. There's the Hound taking off. Or not, there's a pup. But the Hound's going to be taking off here in a minute. So there she goes. But notice how our much closer position. We've got 2 hanging back, but a lot of the Loons are 1 still alive because they didn't take as much damage because the haste pushed them into position to take it out. And they're also closer. Now here's the difference of what I talked about line versus dive with the haste spells. So we get a haste. We're using the haste to move to the critical position right here, right? And the second phase Loons are actually being used as a funneling or a shaping, trying to keep this core team driving a line, not getting distracted and swinging up. We don't want that, right? So here we go. We can use 1 haste up at the top, but again, I think we started with 5 haste, so 4 out of 5 hastes are going to be used on the attack line to the strategic assets they're going to either win or lose the base for you. Because now, I mean, look at all those Loons left, and really, it was a no-brainer, right? It's over. Show's over at this point. There's nothing really that can stop this. Queen's still up even. So it was really, I think, a great example of iterative builds enabling a 3-star of a Town Hall 10 by a Town Hall 9. Granted max, 30 heroes, but still, 1 less spell than Town Hall 10s have, 20 less troop space than Town Hall 10s have. It's pretty impressive. Good job, A-Boy. And I hope that helps everybody. Till we talk again.
What am I gonna do? My clan sucks. Hey, it's JTJ.
I think that's an all-out attack.
No, it's the legendary JTJU. 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 What? I like Greyhorn. You and this army. Download Clash of Clans for free. Then subscribe to JTJU and win.